This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of February 9th, 2015. As usual, there are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if when you watch this video, you think you might have use for any of these different items, be sure to check out the description of this video where I'll place links to each one of them. So first up here is 3D text effects. So all these files are provided in Photoshop file format, so you will need Adobe Photoshop to use these, and there's 6 of them in total, all for different colors. So I just opened up 2 of them here, the blue one and the gray one, so that you can see the difference is pretty minor. It just has to do with the color of the shading on the type itself, as well as the background color. I'm going to show how to use this inside the blue sample right here. So when you open up this file, there's a few different layers here. It'll show this place your text here smart object, and that's where you're going to actually enter in your text. And this isn't limited to just text. You could also do a simple silhouette or something like that if you want to, but here's how you do it. You just double click on this smart layer. When you do that, it'll open up this new window that has the sample text on it. So I'm going to turn that off, and I actually previously put in some other type in here that says walrus. And once again, you can make whatever type you want. You could do a simple silhouette if you want to do that. It should all work pretty good as long as the object is fairly simple in its appearance and that it has a transparent background. I almost always tend to do this by making something inside Adobe Illustrator and then just copy and pasting it inside of here. So once you're done, you can hit Control S or Command S on a Mac to save this smart object window, and then you just go ahead and close that. And when you do that, you can see it automatically updates this window with the type that you placed inside of it, and it has a really cool 3D effect. If I zoom in a little bit closer here, you can get a better idea of how it's doing this. So inside these layers, there are different folders, extrudes. It looks like they stacked a whole bunch of different extrudes to create this 3D depth effect inside Photoshop. And there's also a shadows layer with a bunch of different shadows stacked. I noticed when you turn off some of these shadows, it softens up the background shadow just a little bit. So if you don't want the shadow to be quite so pronounced, you can go ahead and just try turning on or off a few of these and see how it affects how it looks. Just be careful not to do it to all of them, because when you do that, the effect is sort of lost. So just play around in there and see what works best. As far as the background goes, there's a BG folder. If you open that up, there's a layer right here called BG color. There's a little FX button with a down arrow. If you click that arrow, it'll bring up the color overlay. You can then just double click the color overlay. And right across from blend mode, there's a color swatch. If you click that, you can change this to be whatever you want. You can see it will update it in real time. So that's one way to change the overall background color here. But as you can see, the shadow color will remain the same, so do keep that in mind. Whatever color you pick in terms of the name of the color of the file will be the color of the shading that goes on in the 3D extrudes. And also you could use something like an image back here if you wanted to. You could just bring an image inside Photoshop, place it above this BG color layer, and you should be good to go. But this is a really cool file that pulls off the effect really well. It's super easy to use, and the overall result is really professional and quite cool looking in my opinion, so this one's a definite recommendation for me. So if you think I'll have use for this either now or in the future, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up is Simple Mail Email Newsletter. So the set of email templates includes a ton of different colors. I'm not going to show them all, so I have the blue one selected here. But if these look like something you might have use for, I'd really recommend that you download the pack since it's free this week and kind of check out all the different color options that are included and kind of experiment around with them and see which one might work best for you. And also included with each different color are 8 unique layouts. So I've opened up 3 of these different layouts here so you can kind of see how these look. They're very straightforward in their overall appearance, which is really good for email templates. You tend to want them to be really nice and simple, easy to navigate with a nice big call to action at the top, which this one has. So when it comes to stuff like email templates, if you're looking for the easiest possible way to get an email template like sent to a lot of different people, a service like MailChimp might be a better bet for someone who isn't really comfortable with kind of going into at least basic HTML and kind of making customizations and adapting things to suit your needs that way. But if you do want to have a little bit more control and really be able to go in there and change everything and make sure that everything kind of is exactly the way you want it, then HTML templates like this are the way to go, as they offer a lot more flexibility and adaptability than a lot of other standard email template builders out there will let you do. And also included with this set, if I open up Photoshop here, is a Photoshop document that you can go in there and fully customize. All this type is live, and you can go ahead and change that to be whatever it is you want it to say. And each of these different elements are in their own folder. So if I turn off the header, you can tell that it takes away the header here. If I open up the folder for header, there's a little cart icon, a little monitor icon. So you could go in and just use those icons. You could pull them for separate projects if that's something you want to do. And it's always nice when Photoshop files are grouped like this that show you exactly where everything is. So when you want to go in there, make adjustments or changes, you can just go to that folder and you know what you're looking for is inside of it. I'll just scroll to the bottom of this really quick so you can see everything that's included in this Photoshop document. This is a pretty large file right here. You could of course just remove sections, then kind of crop this to be whatever size it is you want your overall email to be. But if you're looking to send out a customized email template and you want to save a bunch of time, this is a really good way to do it. And do keep in mind that there are more colors than just blue. There's a ton of them. So be sure to download the file and just check out all the different color options that are out there. And also each different color has 8 unique templates to it. So if you want to just find whatever template works best for what you're trying to do, there should be something in there that hopefully hopefully is a pretty close fit to what you're trying to achieve. But if you're in the market for an HTML email template, then this is a great thing to pick up, so be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. Next we have 3D polygon clean backgrounds. So this is a very straightforward set of 10 different polygonal backgrounds in JPEG format. If I go to image and then image size here, you can tell these are really large, 4000 by 2500 pixels. So this should be plenty big enough for most digital and a lot of print applications as well. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through all these 10 different examples here so you can get a better idea of how these look. There's a pretty nice variety in the overall shapes and appearances of these polygonal backgrounds, so they don't all have very similar characteristics. And while a lot of polygonal background packs tend to have a whole lot of really small triangular shapes in them, this pack seems to use really large triangular shapes to create the overall appearance, so it's a little bit more unique in that fashion, in that the shapes are much larger than typical with these sorts of packs. And also, if you want to make this a little bit more customized, if you want to make it kind of your own, you can hit Control-U on a PC or Command-U on a Mac, and that'll bring up hue saturation. Then just check this colorize box, and also make sure preview is checked. If you don't have preview checked, it won't actually show what you're doing. And you can just adjust the hue to kind of suit your needs, to change the coloration a little bit, so I can make it like this. If you want to make it lighter or darker, you can change the overall lightness, so lighter just kind of fades it out, and darker just makes it a little bit more saturated. And of course you can change the saturation level as well to make it very bright if that's the kind of look you're going for. And if you want to customize this even more, here's an idea that might work for you. I went ahead and placed another one of these on the same file, so there's 2 of these polygonal backgrounds in one file. If you change the blend mode from normal to multiply, it'll have this new texture show through on the old one, and then you could hit Control-U on a PC or Command-U on a Mac and kind of change the coloration a little bit. Let's say I colorize this to be something a little bit different here. You can get some kind of interesting color interactions going on. I'll pump up the saturation quite a bit. So if you want these to look a whole lot different and have kind of a whole new look to them, you can go ahead and kind of multiply or layer these. Check out all the different blending modes to see how it looks. So I was on multiply, but if I go through some of the different blending modes right here, you can see that it has a pretty drastic appearance effect depending on what it is that I'm doing to it. Like this one right here is overlay, and I think this is a really cool effect. So if you really like these and you want to get some more use out of them, play around with stuff like that. I think you might get a whole lot of additional use out of these, as I think the end result could be really cool when you get some really nice color and shape interactions going on. But that's it for this pack. If you think you'll have use for this either now or in the future, be sure to pick it up this week. Next up is 30 geometric texture brushes. So this is a set of brushes for Adobe Photoshop, so you will need Adobe Photoshop to use these. And there's 2 different types of brushes in this set. There are texture brushes as well as geometric texture brushes. So I'm going to show both those in just a second here. And how to load these, in case you don't know how, you can go to Edit, and then near the bottom here there's Presets. And when you hover over that, it'll bring up Preset Manager. Just click on that, and from there you can click this Load button. Navigate to the folder where these brushes are installed. So right here there's 3 different ones. There's geometric brushes, geometric textures, as well as geometric textures 2500. And the 2500 one is for, I believe if you use CS5 or older, Photoshop CS5 or older, you'll need to use 2500 pixels as the maximum dimension, as some of these other ones are well above that, so they won't load properly in older versions of Photoshop. But if you're using a newer version of Photoshop, I'd recommend using just the standard geometric textures, as they are a little bit larger and will give you a little bit more room to work with. But just hit load on both these, and when you're done, it should populate your brush window with all these different options. So I'm going to use a few of them right here so you can kind of see how these look. So I have one of these selected right now that is an actual geometric texture brush. So when I hit that, it makes this really cool geometric pattern. These are very unique. I haven't seen brushes that look quite like this before. It's a very interesting idea. And you could of course select multiple of these. So if I select a different one and apply that over it, it just continues to add to the overall geometric appearance. I'll just add this by itself so you can see what this one looks like. So this is a very neat idea for really adding a very different kind of texture to your work. A lot of times it's just typical grungy scratches or dots to make up a spongy kind of pattern, but these are totally different than that. And of course you can change the color of the brush to be whatever you want. So if I want to make these perhaps blue, I could go ahead and do that. It has a pretty cool effect on the overall appearance of this. And as a bit of a bonus with this set, there are also just standard texture brushes. So I'll select one of those right now. This one has a very geometric appearance to it. I'll try to select one of these right here that has a very standard kind of just grungy texture to it. Like this one right here is a really good example of a very nice dithering kind of diffused look. So I went ahead and I add this snowflake right here just so I can add some standard texture to it so you can kind of see how this looks. So if I just kind of lightly add some texture to this, you can tell it has a pretty cool effect. Even if you don't want to use the geometric ones, these standard texture brushes might come in pretty handy for a lot of different uses. And I'll also select, just to see how it looks, one of the geometric texture brushes and apply it over this snowflake so you can kind of see how that looks. It has a pretty cool effect. I might not put this on a snowflake, for example, but if you're making something else that has a bit more either geometric or kind of techie look to it, I think these might be really cool. And I also would personally tend to use these a whole lot on the background, so I might hit this in the background right here, then just bring down the opacity a little bit to have it be this kind of subtle but neat effect to whatever it is you're working on. So I really like this pack. Not only does it have the geometric brushes, but it also has the standard texture brushes that might come in pretty darn handy for a lot of people. So if you think these brushes might be something you have use for, either now or in the future, be sure to pick this pack up this week while it's still free. Next we have Amazing A Typeface. This font is provided in TrueType, OpenType, as well as versions for web fonts, so that's a cool bonus right there. And it is a display font in a Victorian style, and I think it's a really cool font as well. It has a pretty unique character to it. When I zoom in a little bit closer here to get a better look, you can tell that all letters have these little peaks on the tops of them and the bottoms of them that really tie this entire font family together. And I should also note that this font is all caps only. It doesn't have any lowercase letters. Since the intended use is a display font, that's just fine. As I could see this being a really cool font, especially on a book cover. Perhaps if you're doing a mystery, Sherlock style book, this would be a really cool font for that. Or posters that you want to have that Victorian vibe, this is a really good fit for it. As you can see right here, it also includes a standard number set and a lot of different special characters, including some extra character sets for different Latin-based languages. If I highlight over this type and then go to type and then glyphs, you can see the entire amount of included special characters here. There's quite a few, so be sure to go in there and kind of check this out if you're looking for anything special, especially if you're using this font in a non-English product. It might be pretty helpful to figure out the additional characters that are included with this. So I went ahead and typed out Free Goods Roundup right here, so you can see how this looks when it's actually typed out in a sentence. I would go in here and kind of tighten up the kerning on some of the letters. For the most part, they're really solid. If you look at this R to the O, there's a little bit of a big gap, so I'd go in there and just kern that up a little bit to make sure it's really consistent. But as a whole, this font looks really solid. All the kerning, for the most part, looks really good, so that's pretty cool to see as well. And I'll just zoom in one more time a little bit closer on these letters so you can see how it looks up close. So I think this is a pretty cool font, and if you have a project in mind where you want to give it that Victorian feel, that kind of older vibe, this is a really nice font to have, so be sure to pick it up this week if you think you'll have use for it, and get it while it's still free. And last up is Clean and Fresh Infographics. These vectors are provided in Illustrator as well as EPS formats, and I have the Illustrator file open here inside Adobe Illustrator to show it, and it's a collection of really nice graphic icons for infographics. So if you're setting up a brochure or perhaps a PowerPoint presentation for a business, I think these might come in really handy as these all look very professional. And also all the type on these is live, so you can go ahead and change everything to make it suit your needs. If I just click on this type right here, I actually don't have this font installed. It's called Titilium Text 25L, I believe. And I think that's a paid font, but you could go ahead and change this font to be whatever it is you want it to be to customize it that way. But you can go ahead and change this up as you see fit, as all the type is live. So don't worry about all the type that's on there already. You can really quickly go in there and kind of make this suit your needs. So I'm going to zoom through all the different things that are on this particular set so you can kind of see what's included here. And keep in mind that since this is vector, you can scale these up or down as big or as small as you need. So if you want perhaps one of these to be its entire slide on a PowerPoint or a keynote presentation, you could go ahead and do that and you wouldn't have to worry about losing any kind of quality. So that's pretty cool. And also I really like the color choices they use in this particular set. It's a very nice and subdued color set that would just be pleasant to look at. Sometimes when you're staring at slides for a long time, you really don't want the colors to be too brash or too bright. So I think the color choices used in this are really smart for that reason. And also something to keep in mind here, there's a lot of really cool icons like this little person right here that you could just grab and use on its own. So even if you don't want to use these pre-made elements as they are, you could just pull different like chat bubble icons and use them on your own projects, or this earth icon right here. There's a bunch of different stuff that you can just kind of pick and choose what you want to use and how you want to use it. So kind of scour through this thing and check out all the different icons that are included in case you might have use for just the icons themselves, even if you don't want to use this in a typical infographic fashion. But this is a very professional looking set, and I think if you're in a situation where you make a lot of infographics, a lot of slideshows, stuff like that, and you want to add a little bit more to your arsenal of possible things to use, this is a really cool thing to pick up. So if you think you'll have use for this either now or in the future, be sure to pick it up this week. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so be sure to check out the description where I'll place links to each one of them. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know what's free this week on Creative Market. Thank you for watching.